And welcome to another episode of the Bandit Room. My name is Charles, and I'm joined here in the studio today by Mr. Aggie.
What's up?
Mr. Caleb.
Hello.
And our special guest today, Mr. Brian Cope. Thanks for joining us.
It's quite an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Now, you're a man of many talents and abilities. You were just kind of telling us all about what you...
He drives a minivan.
He drives a minivan.
And I drive a minivan.
We didn't even discuss that.
Yes, I am.
That is a talent.
That's a talent.
I cashed in the manliness card, and that fits in with the whole having kids and running around and being flexible.
Yeah.
Actually, I have rented minivan a couple of times for conventions.
That's true.
It's very easy to load stuff in there and
this
drive
is
it around.
being recorded, right?
Yeah.
You heard him just admit
we're on
that.
The first time, because they didn't have any other vehicles, I said, I'll
now
take
he's
it.
making excuses.
That was in
for
Tampa.
it.
And after that, every time we go to a convention, we do a lot of truck shows. And if I was going to rent, that's what I rent. It's easy to load stuff and move it around.
So I'm beyond the days of appreciating this, but when I could just hit the key fob and all the doors pop open and the kids just either go piling in or piling out, and yeah, that's a nice feature. But yes, I do drive a minivan, and but I also fly a small plane on occasion, so that's
nice. Maybe
that kind of cancels that out.
That's how Aggie knows you, right? That's how you two met.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, yeah. Tell us about how you guys met.
So Aggie tried to kill me several times. But that's the beauty of being a flight instructor. Is everybody's trying to kill you and you're trying not. But yeah. So we I don't even remember what brought us, the two of us, together. But it was a flight lesson, so I got to go flying with Aggie a bunch of times, and hopefully I imparted some knowledge on him. And
you definitely did. I think we all, both of us and a couple of other people, we belong to our local EAA group here. And I may have seen you in a couple of meetings, but then I was trying to restart my flight lesson, and I don't know who, but someone told me, you're the man who knows all the new things when it comes to private aviation or general aviation.
Yeah.
And so we reached out and we started doing that. We had quite a few lessons here, but we couldn't find a decent aircraft that we could trust and take lessons in. We had some
issues there early on, but yeah.
One flight I remember, we're getting ready to take off. When we take off, and we had this loud buzzing sound in our earpiece, in our headset, and we couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And basically, we turned around, came back, and landed because we couldn't hear. Did we ever find out what was that?
So I did hear what it was. Up inside the wing, there was a piece of tape wrapped around, but these aircraft they're old. They're 60s and 70s. They were born same time I was or before. But this tape had, peeled off after a while, had just decomposed. Okay. And so now you had this little piece of tape that was just sitting there and buzzing. Right. And it was a loud buzzing
noise, yeah.
No safety of flight issue, nothing, but just to drive down the road and hear it was not pleasant. So we had to call that one.
Right. So what are you flying now? I know you're part of a group. You guys own an airplane.
Yeah, so we own a Piper Archer, which is a 4-seat lawnmower with wings, and so that's what I take the family flying in, and that's what I go see my mom up in Virginia in, and that's my own. And then I still fly with ACES Flight School. They're at Rock Hill. Okay. So they have a bunch of 172s and a couple Pipers, and so for me, it's always been general aviation, and I have no aspiration to fly big iron or anything like that. It's I like flying around, flying locally. I personally like going places, which sounds kind of silly, but there's a big crew of people in the EAA, Experimental Aircraft Association, where they really enjoy staying very local, but they fly some really cool aircraft. But they're not going to Virginia or anything. They're staying local. But I like being able to say hey, let's go to Myrtle Beach, and you're there in an hour.
That's cool.
That's a pretty cool thing about general aviation.
I've flown in your aircraft with you.
Yeah,
just one time.
Yep.
I must have done something. I never got invited back.
So you guys, you're hard to insure, Aggie.
That is true. You shouldn't say that out loud. Are you guys planning on, since you are getting a hangar, same location where I'm getting my hangar, are you planning on getting a different aircraft?
I don't know. I'm going to have to see. So there's the timing of it. I don't want to have an aircraft without a place to put it. So since it's such an investment, but do I stick with the one I have? Do I get some partners and get something newer, faster, cooler? I don't know. We'll have to see. It's got a bit.
Do you have any in mind? Like what would like to upgrade to or downgrade to?
No, I would. So I'm pretty enamored with the Cirrus. I just, it's very sleek. It's modern.
Are you talking about the Vision Jet?
No, that's more Agie style flying. So I'm very hopeful that once you get your typewriting in a Vision Jet, that you'll take me flying with you. But no, and so, SR-22 would be fantastic, and the safety aspect of it. That would be nice.
So you are a safe pilot. So you think people, people buy. I watched and read quite a bit about the 22 with the parachute. And do you think pilots who consider that as like the main safety thing are not focused on actually learning the safety of flying an aircraft, and then depending if something goes wrong, I'll just pull the parachute?
Can we pause for a second and explain what you're talking about? Because I have no idea.
Well, ask Brian.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. So there's a type of aircraft called a Cirrus. They broke the mold on General Aviation. So General Aviation has historically been Piper and Cessna were the metal-skinned aircraft. And just very standard. And they've kind of been made the same way for quite a long time. Well, Cirrus came out, and it's an all-composite airframe. It's new. It sits like a car. It's a very nicely apportioned inside, nice instrumentation. It's a very sleek airplane. Yeah. But one of their innovative things was they put a ballistic parachute in every single aircraft. So there's a big red handle above your head that if things go really badly, and really it's not even if it does go really badly, it's even if you have a field to land in, stopping very quickly in freshly plowed field, just the quick stop can kill you. So they actually their philosophy is if something goes that badly, you pull the chute, because the chute will bring you down safely, and they've proven it there's been hundreds of lives saved, and that's, I kind of put the air quotes around that because there's an argument of did the chute really save them, or did they get themselves in over their head? And I think that's what Agie is referencing here. There's the argument now that says, well, people are now taking more risks because they know that they can pull the chute. And I just kind of have trouble with that philosophy, because who buys an airplane like that, and who makes the investment in the training and the personal preparation to go do that and just think, I'm going to throw it all away by pulling the chute, because they thought Cirrus, that was a life ender for the aircraft. You pull the chute and then that aircraft is scrapped, which still, if you can walk away from it, that's great. That's a good thing. But they've actually reconditioned aircraft after the chute's been pulled and after it's come down under the chute, and those aircraft fly again. So there are some people that say, people are taking unnecessary risks, and in a way I can see some risk to that. So generally I don't fly at night. As part of learning how to fly, you have to fly at night. Right. And so I'll do it sometimes, but I'm not going to take my family flying up to Virginia at 11 o'clock at night, because if something does go wrong, you can't see where to land. You don't know where you're going. So you're kind of taking away your safety cushion. Well, if I know I have a parachute over my head, maybe that's an okay risk to take now because I have an out. But there's other people that say that, you'll take risks with weather. You'll fly too close to thunderstorms or in icing conditions or something like that, just because you have the chute. Yeah. I don't buy that. I don't. No.
Cool. So I watched the launch of the 2022 models for the SR-22T with the green paint scheme on it. And I was excited to see what's new about that, because there's such a hype about getting a Cirrus. And when I'm in the market for a new airplane, and so Cirrus was one of the ones that I was considering. So I was excited about the 2022 launch, and all they talked about was the new color scheme, and then now you have USB ports. They didn't really.
There's so much more to it than that. I mean,
that's what that lady was hyped about.
But they have cup holders.
They do. They have several. And I think that's just a function of the design is really matured.
Right.
They've kind of taken it to where.
Isn't that another thing with aircraft? Once a type is certified, they really don't go and make major changes because then they have to go for another certification.
There is a penalty to that. That if you make such a drastic change, that you might have to get a new type certificate.
Right.
The FAA.
And that takes it forever. So
that's a very lengthy process.
Right.
So yeah, I mean it's a mature. How far you can go, but they, to their credit, they took a huge leap away from the industry.
Right.
When they first came up with this concept, it was a huge, huge leap, and because it was what they did was very revolutionary. It's an engineering marvel, really. And now to the point of, the newest exciting thing that they can do is slap a new paint scheme on it and put a USB. Well, good for them. If they have made it to that point, wow.
I still don't have the Cirrus as my number one option. Something about it.
No.
Nah. Well, maybe the Vision Jet. Maybe.
Well, so go back and say it's a mature design. So Cirrus has gone out now and they've made the Vision Jet, which is a completely new aircraft, but it's big. It's a it's a single engine jet, but they've continued to innovate there at Cirrus, and they came up with this jet now that is
it's beautiful. That
it's pretty fantastic.
Beautiful design.
So I want to hear, what is your what are you looking at?
I'm still stuck on my Piper M350.
That's a beautiful airplane.
That's the goal. That's the one.
Yeah.
It's a nice 6-seater, flies fast, sleek, got all the tech you need, and the best part is their service center is right here in our airport.
Rock Hill, yeah.
Only thing is I'll have to cross the runway from my hangar.
Is that a problem for you?
That could be a problem.
I know a guy that could do that for you. Aggie gives me a call and says, "Hey, you exercise the plane today." Okay, Aggie, I feel a beach trip coming up, so
So that's what that's my number one choice. I've kind of did quite a bit of research on that and all the other aircraft in that range. But anyway, so going back to what we're talking about, the aircraft that we were training here in. So I joined Epic Flight Academy in New Smyrna Beach, and every aircraft there's only like a year or 2 years old. And the first time I was doing a walk around with the aircraft that I was going to take, and I walked around, I told the instructor there, I said, dude, every screw and rivet actually matches. There's no different color screws in here, because all the airplanes are flown until then. You'll find screws and rivets of different colors, different age.
Yeah.
It's part of the fun, right?
And training aircraft get treated pretty harshly.
Right.
Learning to land is not a general thing, and it's kind of one of the things that I like from the instruction side is that there's this area in here that if the instructor takes over every time something starts to get sketchy, well, then the student doesn't learn anything.
Right.
You have to let them get into that sketchy zone and see if they can get themselves out. Of course, if you pop out the other side of the sketchy zone, then everybody gets hurt and you bent metal, and so that's no fun either. So trying to figure out where is that point from the instructor, when do you push that instructor override button and say, I have the controls. I kind of like that. I don't like being scared out of my mind, and but the whole instructor side of being a flight instructor, it's the worst classroom in the world. It's loud. There's stuff going on all the time, and you're trying to impart knowledge and you're trying to practice something. So it's an interesting challenge to take on.
So how many times did you have to take over for Aggie while you were flying?
I was going to talk about that. Was been only one time. Was it Clover or what airport we were coming in to land, and some guy was landing from the other end of the runway without making any announcement.
Oh, yep, that was Lancaster.
Lancaster.
I remember that was you.
Yeah.
I remember that. That was
on final.
That was somewhat disturbing.
Yeah, I was on final, and suddenly Brian said, "Oh, I got control." So I look out, and there was someone landing from the other side, and he made no announcements.
No announcements, and you don't. Planes are small. When you're standing next to them on the ramp, but when a plane's 2 miles away, you have to kind of look around and try to find them. And on purpose, when we're coming in to land somewhere, you purposely look where you think planes are going to be and say, can I find a plane there? Can I see a plane there? I look every time. I didn't see a plane there until we were almost committed to landing. Oh, wow. And then suddenly there's another plane that's coming in on the runway. Let's go around.
To be a game of chicken.
Yeah, that's not a good game.
Is that the only time that anybody's taken over for you, Aggie? I'm just
I
curious.
think so. I've had
Lied. No. So no instructor worth their salt.
No, hold on. I'll tell you. I've had incidences where I said, "Can you take control?" But I don't think I've had any major situation where somebody jumped in and.
Well, I'll say too that there's different degrees of taking control. So
Right.
as you're learning how to land, it's one thing to say I have the controls, which means the person that you're flying with needs to get off the controls. Something drastically different needs to happen. But it's another thing every once in a while for the instructor to reach up and just give a little nudge, to
Right.
give a
Right.
little
Yeah,
push or a pull.
Right.
Because there's one of the things that I like about flying is that there's a very technical, there's a right and wrong, and there's regulations and there's a system, but there's an art to it too. There's a feel for it, and the only way you develop that feel is you get into that gray space and you try to figure it out for yourselves. You don't have time when you're landing to look ahead and think, okay, now I have to dip the right wing and now I need a little left rudder. That the time that you needed to apply that knowledge, it's already gone by. It's going by too quickly.
Right, you got to be ahead of the aircraft.
That's
because
right.
Every time you come in, it's a different environment. It could be the same runway, but it's changes. Now, going back to what Brian was saying, they want you to learn to land on the center line, and as a student, you're looking at so many things, and you just want to land and it could not be in the center line, and then so they might push. Give you some advice or nudge the controls to get back on the center line. But there are times where if it is going really bad, like what happened in that situation, we just went around. We didn't trying to salvage a bad landing. We just went around.
Right.
So situation like that happens all the time.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So how long have you been a flight instructor?
It's 2 years.
2
so
years.
I'm a relatively recent, but
Gotcha.
I've been flying since '93, I think. So,
Nice.
Back in the day, I learned to fly. I wanted to be an Army aviator. And that's that's one of my other side jobs is I am a soldier. But way back then, I wanted to fly helicopters for the Army, and so I thought a way to build my resume was to go out to the local little strip that I had up there in Pennsylvania and learn how to fly an airplane. And even though that career path, the Army aviation, Army worked out for me great, but even though the aviation side for the Army didn't work out for me, I've kind of always stayed in. I took a little bit of a break a couple years ago when the kids were real small. But I missed it. Living right here next to the airport, you drive by it every day, and it's a hobby that I really loved. And then I saw it go by every day, and so I decided to get back involved in aviation after taking a couple years off. We had owned a plane previously, and then as a way to get back involved, I thought, all right, well, if I want to step up my game and I want to make sure I'm current, I'll become an instructor. And
There you go.
that was quite an investment in time, but it was also, there was a ton of good knowledge.
But you said your wife also flies with you?
She does.
She's a
No,
pilot?
she's not current
Okay.
anymore, but she's private pilot, instrument rated. And
wow.
so
Okay.
we used to, before kids, at the end of the day, and we lived in Florida. It's a fantastic flying environment that we would just meet at the plane after work and go any number of places for dinner. It's like all the fields down there have little burger shacks and things. Some of them have really nice restaurants. Some of them have little greasy spoons. But is the weekend mornings you fly down, or and when you have your own plane, hey, let's go to Tampa. We were on the East Coast. We were in Melbourne, but let's go to Tampa for dinner. Okay, it's only an hour away, and
really
so
cool.
that was really cool. And then when my son was born, her parents lived halfway across the peninsula. So the car seat would go in the back, and we would take, what would be like a 2.5 hour car drive was like 35 or 40 minutes in the plane, and we just hand him out the door. And of course, Grams is sitting right there, and she's happy as pie just to take the boy for a while, and we could go have some adult time, and it was great.
But
That's awesome.
I thought you were going to say we went to the hospital in the plane.
No.
So talk about, Brian, you probably have more information about this. At our group meetings, there's always someone talking about using the aircraft for charity work or taking pets across from different locations, or patients or kids. Are you involved in any of that stuff?
No, I'm not involved in any of it right now. So I did take a couple Angel flights. It was actually right when we moved up here in 2010. And that was kind of interesting. It was a side that I hadn't seen before, because so you have somebody that needs to go a significant distance to get some kind of medical. It's usually care after an event. It's not like for a major surgery or something, but for chemotherapy or another appointment. And sometimes the economics, their personal family's economics don't allow it. They don't have a specialist there in town. So there's a network of pilots out there that donate their plane, their gas, their everything. It's a good excuse to go fly. It's a good excuse to go fly to a place where you normally don't go. And then there really is the feel good side of, hey, you help these people out. This was a serious this is a serious thing for them. So I did do that. There's I think it's Pilots and Paws.
Pilots and Paws,
where they're taking care of rescue animals. I know a couple of people who do that. I don't know, that part seems a little sketchy to me. I'm more comfortable, hand me a 5-year-old kid who might freak out or throw up in the back seat. I'm okay, but you even the kids you can talk to. The dogs, it's hard to reason with animals sometimes.
Unpredictable. You don't know how they'll behave.
Oh, that is true. So where'd you go to college, Brian? I know where you went to, but
I grew up in Delaware, and then I came down here for school. My good buddy growing up came down to Clemson, and he was an engineering student here. He was 2 years ahead of me. He said, "You got to come down and visit this place." And my whole family went to the University of Delaware. I grew up in a college town. Went to the high school that's like right on the edge of campus. Nice. My uncle was a professor there in the engineering department, so I think my family was, certainly my mom was pretty focused on the University of Delaware, but. It was a gray, rainy day right there at the end of February up in Delaware, and I came down to South Carolina where the grass is green and people are wearing shorts, and I was like, wow. I remember talking to my dad as we walked away from Clemson. I was like, Dad, I think this is pretty nice. What do you think? And I know that one part of my dad was saying, boy, I really want you to go to Delaware, and the other part of my dad was going, man, this place is really nice. So yeah, I went to Clemson, studied engineering, mechanical engineering, and then also did our OTC while I was there. So coming out of Clemson, I was full-time active Army, went over to Fort Bragg and jumped out of airplanes, and the Army decided that they could take an engineer and make a better communications officer, that anybody could fly helicopters. I disagreed strongly with that assessment. A good friend there at school who was a business major and who had about the same GPA as me and stuff, and he got helicopters. And I was like, that's not fair, man. But no, the Army career was real good. I was active Army for about 6 years, and my wife got her master's at Clemson, so we met at school, and she decided to play the Army game too, so we were both at Fort Bragg eventually, and but then we decided that it's time to take a break. Our careers were kind of offset, so it was going to be tough looking forward a couple years ahead, that we between deployments, and this was before 9/11. So the Army was a different place back then, so we decided to get out and go back to grad school. So that's what took me to Florida. I went to University of Florida. For me, it was a business degree, and for my wife, it was a PhD in engineering, structural engineering. And then we stayed down in Florida, and I was working for a defense company out on the coast, and she was working up on the Space Coast, building launch structures. Wow. So that's pretty exciting, because those are getting used now. So she when she turns on C-SPAN and watches countdowns, she can say, "Hey, I built that lightning tower right there," which is that's pretty cool.
So you guys are just both heavy into all types of aviation. Then that's crazy.
Yeah.
Not only that.
Yeah.
Actually building the structures. That's so crazy.
Have you seen any of the space shuttle launches when you were in Florida?
I did. So we would put the ladder out and climb up on the roof. And it was the night launch that we saw was just it was emotional. It was really cool, because you're sitting there, it's happening. I forget whether we had a radio or if we were watching on a phone or what, but you knew it was coming. And from our roof, we were far enough away in Melbourne that we didn't have direct line of sight, but suddenly the light bulb turned on over the horizon.
Wow.
And then that was just the I don't know, extra light. You could see something was going on up there, and then you saw the candle start creeping up and going into the sky.
Wow.
And then your chest started rumbling, and it was a while later. And to watch that arc up across the sky and go out into the distance, that was really cool.
I've had a chance to watch 3 of them pretty up close. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
The one emotional, like, right?
I mean,
I think
the
so.
feeling that you get, even though you are pretty much nobody, just sitting across the water, just watching it. You feel like you are part of it because the whole rumble, you just feel it.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's amazing. Have you been has any of you gone to the Kennedy Space Center?
Recently.
Yeah, I went down to Kennedy Space Center over the summer and saw SpaceX launch. So it's smaller than some of the shuttles, obviously, but still a very night launch and extremely cool experience.
Fantastic.
It was a night launch as well?
Yeah, from right across the water there. So
Yep.
probably not the same level of rumble, but you still get that. It's so cool.
Yes.
Very, very, very cool.
Yep.
I wonder well, not the shuttle, but inside the capsule, if the decor is as crappy as the Teslas are.
I don't know.
Tell me how you really feel, Aggie.
Hey, I had my Tesla for probably 5 months. I was excited about for the first 2.5 months, and then I couldn't wait to get rid of it. The quality of the car inside was so bad. I couldn't believe myself.
I can't say that I know. I drive a minivan.
But hey, listen, I traded up to a Ram 1500. I love it.
Yep.
So I'm excited about it. Cool. Charles, go ahead. Before we jump into Charles, I don't know if you are a movie buff, Mr. Caleb here, or young man Caleb, as I call him. He's big into movies. Are you into movies?
I'd say no. I enjoy going to movies, but if you're going to ask me if I've seen a movie, other than Top Gun, I suppose. I seem to hear that you were holding out on why were you resisting?
I wanted to watch it in the movie theater. I haven't been to movies.
Okay,
in
well
years,
that's good.
And
right.
Caleb went watch Top Gun every Saturday. I finally went and saw it.
I did make an error so that we went and watched it as a whole family, and I didn't invest the time to go back and watch the first version with the kids. So my daughter was like, "Dad, why are they saying that? Why are they doing that?" I was like, "Oh, hold on." So we immediately went home and watched the first Top Gun as soon as we got home.
A pretty good movie. As for a movie, obviously if you don't point out all the stupidness in there, but it's a pretty good movie.
Yeah. Oh no, I thought it was an excellent movie. And of course, there were things like, no, that's not right. That's but I'm willing to give artistic license. It can't be 100% real.
Right.
Did you know that the IRS now requires all tax-exempt organizations to e-file their 990 tax forms? If you need to file a 990, check out expresstaxexempt.com, the quickest and easiest way to e-file your organization's 990 forms. Express Tax Exempt offers interview-style and form-based processes to accommodate 990 experts and newcomers alike. Plus, they make it easy to attach any required schedules, share the return with others in your organization for review, and they even offer live customer support. So go to expresstaxexempt.com now for the easiest 990 e-filing option.
You have a son and daughter.
I do.
And they've been to my place when we had a big party there, and they really enjoyed Indian food. Did you
Yes.
know? Did you know about that before that party? That they like Indian food?
So we're kind of we go out and taste different cultures. And,
Okay.
We enjoy traveling. We enjoy traveling a lot. I'm quite sure that it was my daughter, and that's how they know you, by the way. When I told them today that I was going to come see you, they just kind of went, "What?" I was like, "You remember going over to his house?" "Oh yeah." But yeah, so my kids are pretty adventuresome, and
Cool.
they enjoy different culinary experiences. So
Charles
it's cool.
here is a foodie.
Ah.
Charles, you don't have a blog or Instagram or anything for
it's
food,
not.
do you?
It's not just to that level, and I'm not going out and spending crazy amounts of money on dining experiences. But yeah, I do enjoy.
But when you were
a good
traveling
place to
Europe and all last year, did you document all the different restaurants you went to? What kind of food
I
you had?
definitely took a picture of every good meal. That's just because I'm a person that lives in 2022.
A couple of
Yeah.
weeks ago, we were out on the lake and we saw you were surfing.
Yeah,
or
it was wakeboarding.
Wakeboarding,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
your son was driving the boat.
Yes. Yep.
Is he big into boarding or more into flying? What's the passion there?
He's into anything with a steering wheel right now. It's like we haven't been back to visit yet because we did see your car that first time, and I don't need to stoke those flames any harder. He's looking pretty hard at that. He's 14 now, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, look at that car. That car right there. That's pretty nice, Dad." I'm like, "Yeah, I know I can't afford that insurance, but no, he likes being on the water. He likes flying. He likes pretty much." He went out sailing this past weekend, and
Cool.
I think there's a little piece of the responsibility to it. I mean, I think any teenager, when they can own a little piece of, I think it's one of the things that I like about scouting is you give them opportunities you give them a little rope, and they appreciate that. And so when
Very
he can
cool.
go out and he can pull me around the lake on the string, and I get to go skiing, and he gets to go driving. And the same thing with my daughter. She enjoys that too.
Right on.
My daughter really enjoys being in the plane. And of course, when you're that much shorter, everything's an instrument flight. She's down there, but she sits there and looks out the side window. And matter of fact, I went flying with her. We went up to Hickory just to go to the little sandwich shop that's up there. And I was enjoying looking out the windows and stuff. And from the other seat, she reached over and touched the altimeter. And I was off by 300 feet.
Oh,
and
wow.
so she didn't providing me a little instruction on the way. I was like, all right, that's good. Thank you for that.
That's
Okay.
pretty cool.
It's good that she has my back like that.
So how
But
often do you take your family on a flight like that?
It's probably like every other week that
Yeah?
I go flying. I try to fly at least once a week. But if I get to take the kids, my kids are busy, and that's good. That's the way I want it to be. But last night we had a cross country meet, and as soon as the boy crossed the finish line, I sprinted over, and we call them cheerleading games. They're not football games when you're a cheerleading dad, so you go to cheerleading games, and we do that. We do scouts, and so we don't have a lot of free time, but whenever we get a chance to go enjoy it, it's fun to be anything that's together with the family. And I love watching the kids grow up, and I watch providing them with giving them the opportunity to show some skills and to do things.
Nice. You mentioned that you're involved in the scouting. So you're a scoutmaster here in Rock Hill?
I am. So the Rock Hill has one girls troop. We were talking earlier on. So a couple years ago, the BSA, Boy Scouts of America, opened all of the programs, which includes Cub Scouts, what we used to call Boy Scouts, adventures, or venturing, exploring. They opened everything up completely to women.
Gotcha.
And I really appreciated that from the Army side, and I think from a country, the patriot in me, the guy that wants to see, hey, what's best for our country. There's, boys and girls, ladies and men, if from the Army side, as a senior leader in the Army, I don't care what gender you are. I care that you want to wear camouflage and wear the flag on your sleeve and do the best job that you can. Well, how do we build those people? How do we get those young people? And there's, I think the statistic, it's something like 85 or 87% of youth nowadays aren't eligible for the military, just because either it's a fitness thing or bad deeds in the past or an education thing. And we kind of started about scouting. Scouting isn't meant to build people up to be in the Army, but to me, it's kind of, where do you get the leadership in industry or the military or government, or where do you have to start it somewhere? And I kind of like the curriculum that the BSA has.
Yeah, it's a very good way to build a base set of skills that you don't really get in school. So,
it's absolutely separate from school.
Right.
I mean, what organization gives pocket knives to third graders and says, "Hey, no, it's more to it than that, right?" You start off with a little bit of a little bit of knowledge about the knife, a little bit of hey, here's how you do first aid, because you're all going to get a chance to practice first aid here pretty soon. But then you sit there and carve a bar of ivory soap, and they learn the skills that way, and suddenly they're proud that they have their tote and chip card and they're allowed to carry a pocket knife now. And that pride, you want to stoke those flames. That's where it comes from. And I even like the Scouts BSA, what we used to call Boy Scouts. I like that level even more, and I'm really looking forward to my daughter getting into that level, because it's not just the skills. So you learn how to tie a knot, but then they learn how do you teach how to tie a knot, and then how do you teach how to have a meeting and how do you plan a camp out. And the mentality is not, hey, we're a bunch of knot tires. It's that we go on adventures and we use these little skills together. So while your 6th graders and your 7th graders are busy with those individual skills, the 10th graders are, hey, how many cars do we need to go on this camp out? And who do we have to ask to drive? And do we need any permits to go backpacking in a national forest? And that kind of level, and to see the progression and the leadership development there, that excites me. I think that's pretty neat.
That's cool.
Were the two of you in any of that stuff?
I was in Boy Scouts.
Oh, you were?
I didn't make it to Eagle, but I was involved for years. Yeah. You?
Nope.
No?
Was not.
Yeah, but from your scouting experience, I mean, I'm quite sure you can think of a pretty hard camp out that you went on and you got rain sideways and you were cold. And
Do you go camping, Charles?
Not so much. Not so much now.
How about you?
Now that I have a little boy, I probably will though.
Right.
Yeah.
how old's your son?
It's 6 months.
Okay. Oh, he's real little.
Little, yeah. Very little.
He came and camped out at my house for our office party.
That's true.
I didn't give him any bourbon, but he did camp out there.
Wait, this year you camped out?
No. Claude was
How
hanging
about you,
out on
Claude?
the beach.
I mean, not Clark, Caleb.
I was not in Scouts, but we did go camping and do stuff like that as a family a lot when I was younger. I haven't gone in a while, but I would like to more.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we had a great adventure this past. So we had a couple adventures this past summer. But my son is old enough to go out to Philmont Scout Ranch, which is they're touted as the largest scout ranch in the world, but it's out in New Mexico. And we went backpacking for 12 days, and so he's the youngest age that can go on that higher level of adventure.
Nice.
But to step back, it's really fun because the adults walk in the back, and you never have to cook, and you don't clean, and that's their job, right? But you also realize that every once in a while they won't read the map quite right, and you have to be willing to walk down a trail a couple miles in the wrong direction. But
nice.
To see the beauty that we have in this country, to places where people don't typically go, you can't drive a car there. So we're walking along mountain ridges and seeing, I don't know, easily over 100 miles, off into the distance. So that was a great adventure that we had, something I got to share with the kids.
That's cool. Now, were you in Scouts as a child?
I was, yeah, which I'm kind of surprised that I was, because my parents weren't campers.
Gotcha.
And neither of them had a background in scouting. I'm not sure what caused them to take me to a Cub Scout meeting. But
Did they have a military background? No,
they don't have a military background. Boy, just saying it out loud, for being the firstborn, I guess I was kind of a rebel. I did the Army thing, did Scouts.
That's funny. The only reason I bring it up, my dad, he got us involved in Scouts, but it's like a weird thing. His dad didn't want him to do Scouts because he said, they're just going to make you join the military. They're going to it's like precursor to the military, which is like, funny enough, that is how it worked for you.
Yeah.
But anyway, Granddad had his own reasons. He was a POW in World War II for a while, so he wasn't too crazy about his kid getting involved in something like that.
No, I can see that. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's, it's just like people say about the Sears parachutes. People say, oh, well, scouting, it's a military, and it's not that at all. I mean, it's the purpose of scouting, the statement is
for sure.
building moral and ethical.
And all of my time there, I never felt any sort of and the next thing you'll join the military.
But now I latched onto it. I thought having a uniform with a couple dangly things hanging off of it, I thought that was pretty cool. All right, and when you get to
kind of model that off of like the traditional military decoration type of thing.
And the Army is like scouting with guns and bombs, and what's not to love about that? So I thought I kind of fell right in on that.
When
that
you
really
graduate
worked
from
out for
pocket
me.
knives to guns and bombs.
Yeah. And from the adult side, the mentality's the same. You got teenagers going camping and privates going camping. It's craziness happens out there. So it's a fun environment. Both of them are fun environments to be in. But
we haven't even gotten to Enlighten yet. The company on your shirt.
Oh, what is that?
You want to if we're wrapping down?
That's fine. We'll talk about it.
Brief little moment on what you're doing with Enlighten.
Yeah, sure. So we make a call it a therapy device. It helps people walk. It's an overhead system that allows people to move anywhere within a room, left, right, forward, back, to spin without unspinning. And it's really, so it's a patented device. Both my uncle and my father are on the patent. They came up with this, and this came from a series of other projects that they had worked on with the University of Delaware and their physical therapy department. But, and just like from the software side, I think you'll agree that, when you look at an engineering problem, there's the technical piece, but there's also time and expense. And what we kind of found out was that their medical devices aren't cheap. So our effort is to kind of get this down to a level where people can afford this device. And it's almost philanthropic. So, I'm not making a lot of money doing this. But when you can provide somebody the ability, especially a kid, the chance to walk, and to play and to socialize. And something that I didn't realize from the engineering side is when you have a kid, it's one thing to be able to walk, but that triggers brain development, the socialization when kids can play with kids. There's so much more going on there than just building leg muscle and building nerves and balance. So you're really opening up a life to them by expanding their abilities. So I took a system, we called it the Puma, took a system up to a lady in Charlotte, and we put her daughter in it, and her daughter started playing around the playroom, where normally she's in a wheelchair, or sometimes she had these walkers. Yeah. And suddenly she's suspended from the ceiling on bungees. Well, what kid doesn't like to bounce? I mean, we go down the road and pay a bunch of money to bounce around on trampolines, and so suddenly she realizes that she can bounce around her playroom, and she goes and gets her own. It was an exercise ball, but she starts pushing this ball around the room, and she was having a great time. And then she came over to me, and she might have been in kindergarten at the time. And she kind of leaned into me like she was going to tell me a secret. And, she had this crazy little grin on her face. And she said, "I bounce like a bunny." And I was like, wow. And that's when I realized her mom was sitting over there crying. And, it kind of, gets you a little emotional too. Right. So the fact that we can, put this together and help people out, whether it's adults with the bigger systems or if it's kids with the little systems, that's a good use of time when the kids are off at school and I'm not doing dentist appointments. If I can put together a system or talk to people about how they can help themselves or help their kids.
Very cool, man.
Great.
Very cool. Yeah, awesome.
Is there a website for Enlighten?
Yeah, so it's Enlighten LLC. It's a very bad acronym because it's not an acronym, but it's Engineering Lift Technology, ENLITEN, and then LLC. Enlighten.com. I think probably the best place to look us is on Facebook, because that's where most of our videos are. But when you can see a little kid bouncing around and having a good time, a kid who normally wouldn't walk is suddenly up and cruising around a place and playing with toys and playing with other kids. It makes it worth it. It's very cool. Got
to get you connected to the Miracle Park folks.
Yeah, I would. Especially with them, their efforts of getting people in the workplace. So we've done several projects out in Kansas City, out in Idaho, up at the University of Delaware, down at University of Central Florida, about a cafe where you have a person, we were talking about it before the show started, but a person who otherwise can walk, but every once in a while has an issue, whether, like you mentioned, with a trick knee or has fainting spells or something like that. Now, and they could not stand behind a counter in a walker or in a wheelchair and do what they need to do. If you think about the person that works behind the counter at the Dunkin' Donuts, they don't really travel that far, but they have to travel around. They can't be back there with a wheelchair. That makes it kind of tough. And if we use this technology and support them and provide them a means of earning a living, it becomes very worthwhile. You kind of feel like there's a bigger cause to this. So
that's awesome, Brian. It's
fun.
Really cool. Yeah.
Exciting.
Have you maybe introduce them with Kylie?
Yeah. I know. I heard that show and I was like, wow, that's great. I kind of knew what they were doing with it, but
cool.
Yeah, we'll have to set that up.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for joining us today.
It was a great pleasure. Yeah. No, it's fantastic. So I was before the show started, I said I listened to a bunch of podcasts. They're mostly professional development or something like that, trying to get Aggie to listen to some podcasts. I was floored when I got to hear the first issue of the Bandit Room, and wow, you're actually doing podcasts. That's pretty cool. I didn't think you did podcasts, but
with our podcast, we're not going to develop anyone.
We'll see.
But yeah, it was a great honor to be here. Yeah, this is good fun. So thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thank
Awesome,
you.
Brian. Well, hopefully once our hangars are ready, we'll probably see each other more often.
Let's do it. I'll take you flying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining.
Bandit Room is a production of Span Enterprises, located in sunny Rock Hill, South Carolina. We've been developing, supporting, and growing successful IRS e-filing and business management solutions since 2010. Go to spanenterprises.com now to learn more.
The views and opinions expressed in the Bandit Room are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect or state the opinions of Span Enterprises. No information should be considered as tax, legal, or other professional advice.